Hello, welcome to the Inside the Birds NFL Week 2 preview. I'm Geoff Mosher from Inside the Birds. If you heard the show last week, you know I'm going to be doing this each week throughout the NFL season, giving you a preview of all the games each week on the NFL schedule. I will give you the lines of the games. It's not necessarily a betting show. I want to really break down the matchups and give you my intel on what I know for each game. But I will give you the spreads, and at the end, I will pick three games with the numbers and let you know where I'm leaning. I did not do very well last week. Hope to fare better here in week 2 with my picks, especially the ones at the end with the spread. I always say every year, you listen to Inside the Birds, you know, I say week 1 is a con job. I mean, there are just so many games and outcomes that you just can't predict and really aren't sustainable. You saw the Saints unload a truckload of points last week in a huge blowout of the Panthers. I don't know how sustainable that is for them. 47 points. Obviously, the Jets fizzled out in their debut against the Niners. I was wrong about the Niners maybe having a Super Bowl loss hangover, at least for week 1. But you see things that happen, and already you got a lot of injuries that are impacting games and will impact games this week. So on we go with the week 2 schedule. Thursday night, you saw the Buffalo Bills' impressive win on the road against the Miami Dolphins. The Bills' defense has been impressive so far. They had a rough start against Arizona in week 1, but for a team that's, you know, they're missing Matt Milano, they're without Terrell Bernard, Teron Johnson. I mean, this is what the Bills have been doing under Sean McDermott for quite a bit now, making the most of what they can schematically, getting the most out of their front four. Von Miller coming back into form now after last year, with kind of being a non-factor. Of course, Ed Oliver, great defensive tackle that they've got. Epinesa, everything they do starts up front, but McDermott has done a very good job on that back end. And obviously, offensively, Josh Allen he's got a new offense, got new weapons. He's been making the most of them. They're getting a good running game out of James Cook. He had 3 touchdowns, 2 on the ground, 78 yards on 11 carries. But obviously, and Josh Allen hasn't had to be a Superman. I mean, he was only 13 of 19, 139 yards, spreading the ball around. Shakir, Kincaid, Tyler Johnson. Maybe not great for the fantasy folks, but it's working for Buffalo right now, and they improved to 2-0. And you know, the Dolphins had that comeback win against the Jaguars, and horrific for Tua Tagovailoa to go down the way he did. I watched it. He scrambled. You know, I think when you're watching him scramble, you're kind of saying, get down, get down. You know, the guy has taken some gruesome hits and has had some concussion injuries. He'd already turned the ball over quite a bit before that. Again, you credit Buffalo's defense, but man, the way he went down and he curled the fingers, that's rough. And obviously his future, at least for immediate future and going forward after this, is in doubt. It's not a time to talk about his decision. It's just a time to hope that he recovers, that he's okay, that these head injuries that he's taken on don't do long-term damage. You know, the Bills will go forward with Skylar Thompson for now. They'll have to go back to the drawing board a little bit, but right now the important thing is Tua Tagovailoa's health for the present, for the future, and we hope for the best. Um, so we'll see what happens with Tua Tagovailoa there. Obviously, HN had a big game for them, but you know the story for the Bills is they go on the road, they go to 2-0, they get an early NFC East win at Miami, which is always important. Miami's a tough team to beat in September. It's hot, it's humid. Teams go into Miami. Now that was a night game, so they didn't have the sun beating on them. The Bills, they didn't have to worry about that. But they come out 2-0 and 2 impressive wins. You know, they beat Arizona at home. They come back after kind of a sluggish start in that game to beat the Cardinals, and then they get a key win over the Dolphins to start off 2-0. I picked the Jets to win the division. I think I'm going to wind up kicking myself on that one because the Bills look pretty strong offensively and defensively, and it's really big for them to start off 2-0. Sunday games, 1 o'clock game. You got the Saints at the Cowboys. Cowboys are 6.5-point favorites. Both teams had impressive week one wins. Now, New Orleans, look, I talked about it in the show last week. I said, this is a team that doesn't have a ton of playmakers and needed a new offensive voice. Now they bring in Clint Kubiak to be their offensive coordinator. He's a guy right off the Shanahan tree. And what do they do in their first game? Well, they dropped 47 points on the Carolina Panthers. And some of that, it's hard to know if that's just how bad the Panthers are, but it doesn't really matter. We know the Panthers are bad, but to score 47 points in your first game with your new offensive coordinator, that to me is sort of that week one thing that I talk about that's unexpected. I mean, it's not like they had some unbelievable performances. Yes, Derek Carr threw for 3 touchdowns, but he completed 19 passes for 200 yards. All right. Olave, their star receiver, he had 2 catches for 11 yards. Rashid Shaheed, I think he'll benefit a lot also from the new offense that they're installing, the Shanahan style offense. He had a 59-yard catch. He had a touchdown. But, in general, this was just Carolina being Carolina. Bryce Young just having 161 yards. He was intercepted twice. It was a big start for the Saints. They went up 17-0. They had 2 touchdowns in the first quarter, added a couple of long field goals. Next thing you know, they're up 23-0. They get a Juwan Johnson touchdown. Kamara had 83 yards and touchdown. Nobody went crazy for the Saints. They just were able to capitalize. They have a very good defense. I do think the Saints defense is good. I mentioned that. We'll see Chase Young, how he winds up doing there in the pass rush for them. They've always had a pretty good defense there with Dennis Allen. They have good players. Uh, we'll see. I mean, I think Cam Jordan obviously is a good player. Their linebackers are good. Lattimore's a good player. They're healthy. That's big for them. I just don't trust that they're this good offensively to start the season. And now you got to go into Dallas and play a team that I thought their win in week one was even more impressive. They go into Cleveland. That game was 33-17, but honestly, wasn't that close. 30-10 going into the fourth quarter. 33-10 with 12 minutes left in the game. You saw that the Cowboys didn't have to have star power at the running back position. They got 40 yards out of Elliott. They got 50 more rushing yards out of Dowdle and Lamb. The big thing was Dak. He didn't even have a huge game, 179 yards and a touchdown, but he spread the ball out. Lamb had 61, Cooks had 40 and a touchdown. But the defense, I said in the preview, Inside the Birds, when we did the NFC East preview, I also said last week in this show, I think Mike Zimmer is going to be one of the biggest offseason additions for any team. And I like Dan Quinn. He's a man cover guy, puts a lot of stress on his corners, and certainly Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland have turned in a lot of interceptions for them. But as a defense in big games, they let down. You saw that against the Packers in the playoffs. I think Zimmer will bring stability to that defense. You saw Eric Kendricks have an interception. Trayvon Diggs had an interception. Michael Parsons was out there. He had a sack, I think 1.5 sacks. I think Mike Zimmer's defense, playing more zone, manufacturing more pressures instead of just sending the house, is going to be good for the Cowboys. And it clearly was in the first game. Now, I know the Browns struggle offensively, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But the bottom line is, I mean, they held the Browns to 2 of 15 on third down and 230 total yards. So that was an impressive win for the Cowboys on the road. They come home, they'll play the Saints. Always a kind of a regional type of game for them. But I like the Cowboys in that game. The other 1 o'clock games. You got Tampa Bay Bucks going into Detroit. Lions are 7-point favorites. I think the Lions look really good. They obviously played a Rams team. I like that Rams team. The Rams are a little banged up right now. Had to win that game, tight game against the Rams, but that was a good first test. I said it. I'm on record. I think the Lions are going to go to the Super Bowl. Sure, they had to go to overtime to win that game, but you had a pretty good game out of their defense. You saw Jamison Williams really come into his own, at least for week one, 5 catches, 121 yards, and a touchdown. If he's going to step up like that, if he's going to become that player for them, on top of what they get from Amon-Ra St. Brown, on top of what they get from Sam Laporta, and the really nice running combination that they got from David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, the Lions are just going to be a tough team. I mean, they could win 11, 12, 13 games. They could be that good. I told you having both coordinators back was going to be a big, big plus for them. Now, Tampa Bay played well in week one. You saw Baker Mayfield have a nice game. Now, granted, I said last week, when you're a rookie quarterback like Jalen Daniels, the last coach you want to have to go up against is Todd Bowles, because he'll just be in his bag with all these blitzes and things that a guy like Jaden Daniels isn't ready for. And that's basically what happened. I know Daniels ran around, scored a couple of touchdowns, but he only threw for 184 yards. He didn't throw a touchdown. He didn't throw a pick, which is good. But in general, you saw that the Bucs were ready to go. The change in offensive coordinators, losing Dave Canales, bringing in Liam Cohen, seemed to work for at least the first week. Mayfield, 24 for 34 touchdown passes, obviously 2 to Evans, 1 to Godwin. I think the big thing is they fortified the offensive line. They brought in some new playmakers. They saw the rookie Irving, 62 yards. He might wind up being their top back over Rachaad White when all is said and done. By the end of the season, I think he's probably got a little more juice. You saw the rookie Jalen McMillan from Washington. I told you to watch out for him. He had a 32-yard touchdown, and the offense was clicking on all cylinders. I just think right now you go into Detroit, you're Tampa, you're 7-point dogs. I don't know if the Lions are going to win that game by 7, but I do like them to go to 2-0 and beat Tampa. Should be a good game, but I like the Lions in their house. Indianapolis at Green Bay. Now, this is interesting because the Packers will very likely be playing Malik White, who they just traded for to start the season as their backup quarterback from Tennessee. Jordan Love gets hurt against the Eagles. The Packers are 3.5-point dogs at home with the Colts coming in. This is a tough game to evaluate. I think people think that just because Malik White has to play for the Packers and he just got there and the Packers lost the first game and Anthony Richardson made some plays for the Colts, even in a loss against the Texans, that the Colts are going to come in there and win that game. I expect a very, very close game. I think the Packers can win this game. I expect Matt LaFleur to make easy reads for Malik White, to run the ball a lot with Josh Jacobs, with the Emmanuel Wilson kid who ran wild against the Eagles. I think he's going to get him some easy stuff with Jaden Reed. You use all the playmakers, try to play ball control, get the ball to the tight ends, Musgrave, Kraft, and see if they can, get some field goals, maybe get a few into the end zone. I don't think that the Packers are going to get blown out just because they're on Malik White. They're home in Lambeau. It's a tough place to win. And they're playing a Colts team that was very, very feast or famine against a good Houston, Texas team. Anthony Richardson completed 9 passes. I mean, I get it. It was a close game, 29-27. That's what you're going to get out of that Colts offense early on with Anthony Richardson. You're going to get a lot of splash plays. He had a 60-yard touchdown pass. He had to Alec Pierce. He had a 54-yard touchdown pass to Doolin. He ran for a touchdown. But in general, I don't know. You're going to see a feast famine offense. Going into Green Bay, I don't think is going to be very easy for them. So the Packers are 3.5-point favorites. Wouldn't surprise me to see the Packers cover. I'll go with the Colts to win the game because they'll probably make a few more plays than the Packers, who are probably going to struggle to score points. But I don't think they're going to win this game by 2 touchdowns. I know some people think that the Colts are just going to romp because the Packers are on Malik White and he just got there. Jets at Titans. Jets are actually 3.5-point favorites going into Tennessee. This was a tough one for me because the Jets were a real letdown in their first game against San Francisco. Now, I get it. The Niners are a really good team. Jets had to travel, play Monday night, working in some new offensive, linemen, working in some new offensive additions. I just thought I expected a little bit more out of Aaron Rodgers. I expected a little bit more out of Breece Hall. He only averaged 3.4 per carry. They didn't really get much out of Garrett Wilson, 6 for 60. It just didn't look like they were offensively in sync against a Niners team that I thought, wouldn't be as strong defensively without Dre Greenlaw to start. They lost Armstead on the line. He's with the Jaguars now. They don't have Chase Young. I didn't like the depth of the 49ers as much as I have in the past, but look, they got the job done and the Jets looked rusty. Now the Jets have to go play a Titans team that blew it, which is not surprising. I mean, they've got a lot of new pieces as well. They were up in their game against the Bears. I told you I thought the Bears defense, all you have to do if you're Caleb Williams is not make mistakes. Caleb didn't have a great game. But Tennessee was up 17-0, and they blew that game. So it makes me think that the Titans are ill-equipped to maybe finish off. Yeah, again, you don't try to make too much out of week one. They certainly got a good effort out of Tony Pollard. Levis threw 2 interceptions, though. And he's got a big arm, but he's got to protect the ball. And if he doesn't protect the ball, it's going to be an issue. I like this Jets defense a lot. I'm going to pick the Jets to bounce back and come back and win this game against the Titans. 49ers, we just talked about. They go to the Vikings. The Vikings, this is one of those week one matchups where I say, is this just a con job? Right? Are the Giants really that bad? Are the Vikings with Sam Darnold that good? 4 touchdowns to win that game. They slaughtered the Giants 28-6. Darnold, 2 touchdowns passing. They got a touchdown from Naylor. They got a touchdown from Jefferson. And then a great interception return from Van Ginkel, 10 yards, to really put the finishing touch on that win. Now they come home. They face a Niners team coming off an impressive win. The Niners are 6-point favorites. Do I think the Niners are going to win by 6? I think they could. I do. I mean, that's a pretty big number to be a home dog for the Vikings, who are off to a good start. But I don't know that the Vikings are going to, the 49ers know about Sam Darnold. He's with them last year. I just think the 49ers are going to have too many weapons. Brian Flores is a blitzer. That obviously works well when you're facing Daniel Jones, and right now he's scattershot. When you're facing Brock Purdy, who's got his full set of weapons, it's a different story. They'll be ready for it. The only question is McCaffrey going to be able to play? If he's not going to play, does Jordan Mason do as well as he did against the Jets defense? I mean, we know the 49ers running game, it's like fungible. I'm not saying Christian McCaffrey is fungible, but they put running backs in and bam, they do well. You're seeing it also with the Dolphins too. Same kind of offense, but I don't, whether or not McCaffrey plays, I don't think is going to matter that much. I like the Niners to win that game. Seattle at New England, 1:00. The Seahawks travel across the country to play the Patriots. It used to be, I don't know, 5-10 years ago, and before that, that when a West Coast team had to travel to the East Coast to play a 1:00 game, you could just pretty much bet your money on the East Coast home team to win that game. It's changed. In fact, Seattle's one of the team that changed it. Several years ago, they played about 4 or 5 of those 1:00 games on the East Coast. They had Russell Wilson at quarterback back then, and they won a good deal of them. And you're seeing it, I guess the advent of sports science and things like that make it and rest, and when teams decide to travel out has changed the dynamic of it. So I'm not going to put too much in Seattle having to make that long flight to New England. They're neither is Vegas. They're 3.5-point favorites over the Patriots, despite the fact that the Patriots are coming off the upset of the week. They ruined me in 2 survivor pools by beating the Bengals. Maybe their defense, which is usually strong, is going to be stronger than I thought this year. I thought they were a little lacking up front in the pass rush, especially after trading Judon. But Seattle comes off a pretty nice performance against the Broncos. Now the Broncos, they're really nothing home to write out. They're nothing to write home about. They don't have a lot of weaponry. Bo Nix made his debut. He threw 2 interceptions, and the Seahawks did what they generally do. They ran the ball well. They got 100 yards out of Walker. Geno Smith completed a decent percentage of his passes, 18 to 25, 72%. That's good when Geno's going well. And in this new Ryan Grubb offense that I thought would be a little bit more downfield, you didn't see that as much. In fact, only 3 catches for 29 yards from Metcalf and only 2 for 11 for Noah Fant, only 2 for 19 for Jackson Smith and Jigba. So the passing game really wasn't there yet for Geno Smith and the Seahawks, but I think it will be against the Patriots. I think that they'll have some success. I expect them to be a little bit of a work in progress with this new offensive coordinator. So that, again, they did get 26 points, mostly relying on the run game. I mean, they got a 30-yard. They got an amazing touch. They got a nice touchdown run from Geno Smith of 34 yards, and then they got Zach Charbonnet, their backup running back, Charbonnet, to catch a 30-yard touchdown pass as well. I suspect that they will try to push the ball a little bit more in week 2 against the Patriots. They're 3.5-point favorites. I think that's fair. I think they're the better team. I think the Patriots beating the Bengals was more about the Bengals turning the ball over and just being discombobulated as they usually are early in the season. So I expect the Seahawks will go into Gillette Stadium there, and I'll look for them to win. 3.5-point favorites. I like the Seahawks in that game. Giants at Washington. You get an early NFC East brawl between two teams that are probably not going to be very good this year. And for the Giants, I guess the Quinn Ewers sweepstakes is on, because I don't think you could have played worse in the opener than the Giants did. I was wrong about them. I thought Daniel Jones would have a lot to prove, given all of the storylines around him, the disrespect. They don't want him, this and that. He looked terrible. 186 yards, two interceptions. And they didn't get the ball to Malik Neighbors enough. I know Flores came after them. That's what he does. So you're going to check the ball down a lot. I guess that's why Wan'Dale Robinson had 12 targets, which led the receivers. They'll be without Slayton, I think, in this game. You got to get the ball to Malik Neighbors more. He had 7 targets, 5 catches for 66 yards. I will be shocked if Malik Neighbors doesn't have double-digit targets in this game. He should. He absolutely should. I think the Giants can win this game, even though it's in Washington. I still believe that with Dexter Lawrence, with Brian Burns, with Kayvon Thibodeau, Ojulari, I think the Giants' defense should be better. It obviously got crapped on by Sam Darnold and the Vikings. I think that they, obviously you need some help from your offense. Can't be turning the ball over the way Daniel Jones did, but they've got to be better too. There's no way that they should have allowed 312 yards to Minnesota Vikings. That's just too much. I mean, the Vikings average 6 yards per play. That's entirely too much. Not a good debut. I'm going to say that that's a week 1 thing. I like the Giants over the Commanders. I expect Jaden Daniels will make some plays. This might be a high-scoring game as both these defenses try to figure themselves out. Forbes out for the Commanders. That's not, he wasn't playing well anyway, but Jaden Daniels has got to find somebody to get the ball to. He only got the ball to McLaurin twice in the opener. Zach Ertz had 3 catches. Their leading receiver was Austin Eckler with 4 catches for 52 yards. So even though they scored 20 points, even though Jaden Daniels, he looked okay. He rushed for 88 yards, which was big for him. He threw for 184. He avoided an interception. I think he had 3 fumbles, though. He didn't lose any, but he lost 3. They were lucky to recover. I'm going to go with the Giants here and try not to get bit in the ass 2 weeks in a row. They are 1.5-point dogs. I just think they're the better overall team. I could be completely wrong. Listen, if Daniel Jones goes out there and stinks it up again, maybe they're closer to Drew Lock than I think. Maybe they are. Maybe that's how bad the Giants are going to be. Again, the Quinn Ewers sweepstakes is on for them. They lose this game and go to 0-2. It's definitely a topic of discussion, but I think they're going to come out of that game with a win. And then Washington will start off 0-2. Not surprising. They got a lot of new parts, working in the new quarterback. I think during the middle of the season, you'll start to see them make more progress. But for now, I think it's going to be rough sledding for Washington. Last one, other 1 o'clock games. You got the Chargers going to the Panthers. Chargers are 6.5 point favorites. This is another West Coast team traveling to the East Coast. 1 o'clock game, favored by 6.5. That's a big number. I mean, I know the Chargers won. I know J.K. Dobbins looked good. A little bit smoke and mirrors. I think he averaged 10 yards per rush in that game against the Raiders. Okay, so you're everybody's on the J.K. Dobbins bandwagon again. I think it's great for him that he's coming back from this injury. He had fewer carries than Gus Edwards. Edwards had 11 carries for 26 yards. Dobbins had 10 carries. He gets 135 yards. Justin Herbert only passes for 144 yards. He's trying to find a top receiver. Nice job by the rookie McConkey. Ladd gets 5 catches, 39 yards, but they're playing the Raiders. The Raiders stink. And now they get to go fly across the country and play another team that stinks, the Panthers. I think I like them to win. I don't know that they cover 6.5. I think that's a little much. Would it shock me if the Panthers sort of got their act together? They're going to be another work in progress under Dave Canales. No, it wouldn't shock me. But because, again, I try not to put too much into week one, as bad as the Panthers looked. I know they got destroyed on the road by 37 points, but I think that they'll be better against the Chargers, but I think the Chargers will win. The Browns and Jaguars. Jags blew it, as I mentioned, in the first game. Now they get to welcome the Browns. The Browns are just, they're hurting right now. Njoku's hurt. I don't think he's going to play. Deshaun Watson's coming off this surgery. He just does not look like a confident quarterback. Greg Cosell noting that he looks like a quarterback getting stuck in the pocket. It's not a good situation for them. Jerome Ford running the ball. I mean, it's going to be a while before they get Chubb back. There's not a whole lot to like. I mean, both of Cleveland's offensive tackles were out also against the Cowboys. You're going to face the Cowboys. You need your offensive line healthy with the pass rush that they have. Now, they may get Jack Conklin back for one tackle spot. I think they'll still be down their other tackle, but they got a lot of injuries right now. They are banged up all over. Zadarius Smith banged up. Good practice. A good pass rusher for them. Without Njoku, I think the Jaguars, who blew that game against Miami, will do better. Watch for Tank Bigsby. He actually, you saw Travis Etienne have a bad fumble. You saw a bad 4th down play call by Doug Peterson or Press Taylor in that game. The Jags have some issues, man. I'm not a big fan of how they started or their future offensively. If they don't start finding a better rhythm on offense, having better play calling on offense, but I think they're catching the Browns at the right time. You did see Lawrence hook up with the rookie Brian Thomas for a touchdown in that game. They just got to finish better, and they can't be turning the ball over. And watch for Tank Bigsby, 73 yards. He had as many carries in that game as ETN, and he averaged 6.5. I don't know if that's a week one thing or if you're going to see Bigsby start to gnaw into Travis Etienne's workload. Either way, I think the Jaguars are going to be pretty sound in this game. I like them to win that game. Last 1 o'clock game, Raiders at Ravens. I said it in this preview last week. I said, I'm worried about the Ravens' lack of a number 2 playmaker behind Zay Flowers. I thought Mark Andrews was sporadic last 2 years dealing with injuries. I just didn't know. They didn't have OBJ. I was worried about their offensive line a little bit. I thought the Chiefs were going to win the game. They did win the game, but the Ravens put up way more of a fight than I thought. Now, they only scored 20 points, but you got 9 catches and 111 yards. I said that I felt that Isaiah Likely had to be somebody who stepped up for them. I didn't picture 9 catches for 111 yards and a touchdown, but I did say I felt like he could be a key to their offense, and he certainly was in the first game. Now they come home and they play a very bad Raiders team that there's just not a lot to look forward to with the Raiders there. They've got some injuries on defense as well. So Ravens are favored by 9.5. I think that's fair, and I think the Ravens will win that game, and I think they'll win pretty convincingly. 4 o'clock games. You got the Rams, 1.5 point favorites going into Arizona. Here's the thing, though. The Rams are all beat up on the offensive line, and when they are beat up in the offensive line, I get worried about Matthew Stafford. Now they were already beat up on the offensive line before they went into Detroit. They gave Detroit a good game before losing in overtime. Stafford took a bunch of hits, still passed for 317 yards, still threw a touchdown. You saw Cooper Kupp get 21 targets. You also saw Puka Nacua. He's hurt and he's out. You can expect 21, maybe more targets again for Cooper Kupp in this game against the Cardinals, who I don't think have a very good defense. I think they'll hang in there. I just worry that you're down Nacua and you have all these injuries up front. I mean, they've got injuries at center, they got injuries at guard, injuries at tackle. I don't know. That worries me. The Cardinals are 1.5-point favorites. I'm going to go with, I don't like the Cardinals a little bit, and it really concerns me that they could only get the ball to Marvin Harrison. I think it was one time. Yeah, one catch for 4 yards in that loss to Buffalo. You got to get the ball to Marvin Harrison. 3 targets, 1 catch, 4 yards. That's really, really concerning. But I'm definitely concerned about the state of the Rams up front. And they're the better team by far. It wouldn't shock me if they won. Again, they're 1.5-point favorites, but I don't like it when the Rams are beat up. It makes me worried about Matthew Stafford taking some hits. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Cardinals came out of this game and got the upset there. Pittsburgh at Denver. I watched the first half on film of the Pittsburgh Steelers win against the Falcons. And I got to say, as Greg Cosell likes to say, that was a tough watch for both sides. The Steelers' offense was not good to watch. I know they won the game. They got heroics, obviously, from their field goal kicker, made a lot of big kicks. 57 yards for Boswell, 51 yards for Boswell, 56 yards for Boswell. Folks, if you're into fantasy, you might want to pick up Chris Boswell if he's available, because he may be relied upon a lot. Now they go into Denver. Denver's not got a lot offensively, so it does feel like another game that the Steelers can rely heavily on their run game and hope that Justin Fields makes 4 or 5 nice passes to Pickens and Freiermuth. It worked against the Falcons, who I thought are pretty good defensively, but couldn't get anything going offensively at home, which was unfortunate for them. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But that was a scratch and claw Steelers win. Made possible by their defense and by their running game, and just a few plays made by Justin Fields, who also ran for 57 yards. I have a feeling that'll be the same result in Denver. I think they're going to rely on their defense. They're going to rely on their running game. They'll etch out just enough few big plays from whoever it's Fields, or even if Russell Wilson is back. It looks like Wilson has a chance to play in this game, but I don't think that's going to change the complexion of their offense a whole lot. I like the Steelers in the game. I think the Broncos are going to be a work in progress for a little bit as Bo Nix gets going here with Cortland Sutton, with his other receivers. He doesn't have a whole lot to work with there in Denver. They're trying to rely on their running game. Was not easy for Javonte Williams against the Seahawks. He only had 23 yards. And I don't know. Right now the Broncos are trying to find out what they've got offensively. And Josh Reynolds will get some catches. Veely get some catches. But they got to Sutton had 12 targets and 4 catches. That just tells you right now that he's getting his targets, but they're just off in the passing game. So the Steelers, I would expect, will capitalize on that, come out with a win. The other big 4:00 game, 4:25, the Bengals go to Kansas City. I don't know why, but the Bengals feel like they have to start off every year slowly. Already you're worried about Burrow's wrist. You see him flexing it. T. Higgins not going to play. Jamar Chase only had 62 yards. I told you about Andre Yoshi. They call him Yoshi. It's Yoshisavis. I'm probably butchering his name. He's a second-year slot guy they got. They really couldn't get the passing game going. But more importantly, they turned the ball over twice on offense. You can't do that. Who lost fumbles? It was Hudson lost the fumble. Jones lost the fumble for them. Burrow fumbled once, although they were able to recover it. It was not a good game. They had 224 yards. They only converted 4 of 11 third downs. They were under 5 yards per play. Now, their defense wasn't bad, but again, you're playing the Patriots, and the Patriots don't have much. The Patriots just rode the Ramondre Stevenson train for 120 yards, 4.8 a carry. So, the Bengals defense has to tighten up a little bit. I think the Bengals will look a little bit better, but unfortunately for them, they have to go into Kansas City and play the Chiefs. And the Chiefs look like a well-oiled machine. Now, the Chiefs won't have Hollywood Brown. He went on IR, but you saw Xavier Worthy break out for 2 touchdowns. You saw Pacheco run the ball well. And against the Ravens defense, he did decently well. I mean, 30 yards, 45 yards on 15 carries. You got a reverse out of Worthy for 21 yards. Rashee Rice, 7 for 103. They didn't even need Travis Kelce that much. They scored 27 points. Kelce only had 3 catches, 34 yards. I told you on the show last week, they're starting to not that they're phasing him out, but he doesn't play on first and second down as much as he used to. He's really there to catch passes on second, third down, and be a hero for them in the postseason while they work in their young set of wide receivers. And obviously you got 9 catches and 150 yards out of the Rice and Worthy tandem. They should beat the Bengals. I expect that they will. They're 6-point favorites at home. They may win by more than that. Sunday night game, Bears at Texans. I like this game. I think it's interesting. The Bears defense showed you what they got, in that Tennessee game, because they basically took over. They forced Tennessee and Will Levis into some bad decisions, even down 17-0. Then you get a 21-yard block punt return from Owens. You got a 43-yard Tyreek Stevenson interception return. And next thing you know, the Bears pulling out a win. I said Caleb Williams does not have to be a superhero for them to win games. He just can't make mistakes. He did not throw any interceptions. He did fumble once, but they didn't lose it. To me, that's the same thing you got to do against the Texans. Can you beat the Texans in Houston? It's going to be tough. But I think you got a shot to at least keep it close because you have a very good defense. You can play some ground control. They should probably do that more with DeAndre Swift. Try to work the short game. We'll see if Keenan Allen, I know he was banged up a little bit. Rome Odunze also banged up a little bit. So now you've taken away some weapons. They're a little hurt here offensively. I think the Texans will win. They came out guns a-blazing. I just like the Bears defense a lot. I don't think it'll be very easy. I do think the Texans will win, though. You had to like what you have seen with the addition of Joe Mixon. He had a huge game against that Colts defense. And obviously CJ Stroud with the 2 touchdown passes. Look, they have 3 really good receivers. I know the fantasy folks want to know who's going to be it on that given day. It doesn't matter to the Texans. There was Nico Collins, had 117 yards. Steph Diggs only had 6 catches for 33, but he found the end zone twice. And Tank Dell, you say, he didn't do much. 40 yards on 3 catches coming back from the injury that he had last year. This is a really good Texans team. They should be able to handle the Bears. Will they move the ball up and down the field to the tune of 417 yards like they got against Indianapolis? I don't know about that, but I do expect they'll win. 7's probably a fair number. 7-point favorites there over the Bears. The night game we'll get into, the Monday night game, obviously we'll get into more on Inside the Birds. Eagles are going to play the Falcons. First game for the Eagles fans in South Philadelphia. They'll be ripping, roaring, ready to go. The Falcons come in with all sorts of discombobulation on offense. They look horrible against the Steelers. Kirk Cousins does not look comfortable in a predominantly shotgun offense, predominantly pistol offense. You wonder if they'll make some changes there. Kirk Cousins was pretty open about it. The Eagles, they've got to figure out a way to stop Bijan Robinson. They did not do well against Josh Jacobs in the opener. Now everybody was slipping all over the field. You come home, you get a little more traction. You got your fans, 6.5-point favorites. I think that the Eagles are catching the Falcons at a good time. I think the Falcons, with this new offensive system, new offensive coordinator, Zach Robinson, putting in a Shanahan-style scheme, I think that's going to be a little bit of an adjustment. They've got weapons. Offensive line's decent. Running back was good. Quarterback should be good as he gets healthier and gets more adjusted. But I think it's going to be a little bit of a work in progress for them for the start of the year. So I like the Eagles to win that game. But again, we'll cover that on Inside the Birds pregame live. Myself, Adam Kaplan, and Greg Crosell will do the pregame show. All right, I told you I was 0-3 in my picks last week against the spread. I lost on the Bengals. I lost on the Dolphins. I lost on the Giants covering against Minnesota. I lost all three. So 0-3. Hopefully, I'll fare better this week. I like the Ravens 9.5 over the Raiders. I mean, the Raiders have to travel. They're not very good. The Ravens have the extra rest coming off that opener against the Chiefs Thursday night. Is it a big number? Yeah, it's a big number, but I think it's doable. I think that they can win this game by 2 touchdowns. Even though that they are 9.5 point favorites, I'm not afraid of that big number. I will take the Ravens to cover. I like the Jags giving 3 to the Browns. I told you I think the Browns are a mess right now. They're still good defensively, but offensively they are a mess. And I think the Jags defensively have gotten better, and that'll show in this game. They'll probably cause a few turnovers. They just have to be more sound offensively. They have the weapons to do it. Lawrence is healthy. Etienne should have a better game. Brian Thomas, you saw, establish a rhythm. Gabe Davis. I mean, they really should be able to control the ball and make some big plays against Cleveland, especially if Cleveland can't move the ball offensively. So I like the Jags giving 3 to the Browns. And then I like the Chiefs giving 6 to the Bengals. They're home. They also have the extra rest. The Bengals don't look right now. The Bengals always start the year like this and then sort of pick up the pace. They obviously have, T. Higgins out hurting them. They've got to figure out their running game without Joe Mixon. It didn't look so great with Zach Moss and with Chase Brown. I think eventually they'll figure out how to use those guys effectively. But for now, you have to like the way the Chiefs match up here against the Bengals and look for more explosive plays from Worthy, from Rice. Pacheco will probably get going. So I like the Chiefs giving 6 to the Bengals. So those are my 3: Ravens, Jaguars, and Chiefs. Enjoy your football watching this weekend, everybody.